Hi, Kevin. Welcome again.
Hello, Sarah. Here we are again, part
Yes,
four.
yes, 1 week on.
Yeah.
How are you doing this week? How are things with you?
Yes, I think overall things are feeling a lot more positive this week. In the UK, we've got 11 million people vaccinated, which is great. I think the vaccine program looks as if it's beginning to roll ahead. I hear last night that our Prime Minister and Monsieur Macron had some positive discussions about rolling out the vaccine in France. So let's hope, because without other countries, having a good vaccine program, what the UK is doing is not enough. So the one thing I did want to say, though, and it's a question which keeps on coming up just throughout the media, is about relaxing everything. And if you've had the vaccine, can I go and meet my grandchildren, etc.? Well, the answer to that is no. We've got to still exercise caution. We've still got to treat ourselves as if, even if we're vaccinated, as if we can get COVID like anybody else. We can still pass it on. So transmission's still a big issue. And we mustn't forget, actually, in the UK, we're still having 1,000 people a day die, and the infection rates are just really, really high. So I, of course, understand that I'm frustrated like anybody else, but the watchword is caution, really. So very positive news, as Dr. Van Sam would say, on the Prime Minister's briefings, light at the end of the tunnel, but we do have to be cautious. So I'm afraid it's good news, but tempered a little.
Yes, yeah. No, it's great to hear that there's some good news, and we can see the end is in sight now. But like you said, we've got to stay safe and yeah, considerate. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what I really want to ask you this week is it's more of a general question instead of individual questions. It's more of a general question. Here at No Panic, we've had a huge influx of people calling, not so much questions about COVID, but more about their general well-being. There's a lot of people that are starting to have panic attacks they've never had before. There's people that are suffering from loneliness because of the lockdown, etc. People also, asking about their depression. Their mood is very low. They're finding it difficult to get going, to do things, to be motivated. And also, of course, insomnia is a huge problem at the moment. So it'd be great to hear some tips that you've got on those kind of general things.
Okay, well, Sarah, if this is acceptable, what I'd like to really do is address the more general issues about panic and general anxiety and depression and loneliness as a kind of entity. I realize that people suffer some, or all of those things, but I wanted to really just provide some advice about dealing with those problems in general. But I'd like to come back to the issue of sleep, particularly at the end, because I think that's something where there is some very specific guidance that I can give. I think the first thing to say, Sarah, and it's really important, I think this is a stigma lesson, really, is that while I know from what you've told me, No Panic's been inundated with calls and messages from people suffering all those things, but all those things are prevalent in the general population as well. And people without any mental health problems, people who don't contact No Panic, it's absolutely clear that people are getting panic attacks out of the blue, feeling depressed like they've never felt before, feeling lonely, even if they've got people around them, which is an important thing. So I think the important message is that if you're suffering from those things, you're not alone. It's a population-wide thing. Now, that in itself is cold comfort. So I'm hopefully going to give some advice about that. Now, one thing which is important is that it's become clear that after a year of COVID, everybody's arousal system has been increased. So we've all become more risk aware. We've all become more negative in the way that we think about things that might harm us or people around us, those we love, and our family.
Mm.
And so therefore, the body's response to that is to produce adrenaline. Now, adrenaline arousal, fight or flight, puts you in a prime state for anxiety.
Mm.
I suppose it's really important also to emphasize that once this pandemic is over, and it will be over, our natural response will be that over a period of time, that arousal level will reduce. Now, the important message there is, whatever you're feeling now, it will get better to some degree because of the easing of stress on you.
Mm-hmm.
Because your perception of risk, your worry about everything is going to reduce. It's not going to go away, but that is going to get better. So that's the first thing to say. Now, I suppose the second thing to say is that please go to the No Panic website and access the resources we've got there, because we've got lots of resources to deal with all of the problems that you mentioned. And I think that's really, really important. But if I could just say something about some specific advice about the problems that you've mentioned. One of the alarming things that has cropped up over the course of the last year is the way in which some people have actually just shut themselves in and not taken any exercise. Now, that's for fear, and people who are shielding, people who are shielded, they're not taking any exercise. So there's no method, there's no means of burning off the arousal. Now, in the depths of winter here, we're expecting snow tonight. So it's not a great time to get out, but 150 minutes of exercise a week. Now, that sounds like a lot, but if you break it down, half an hour a day, outside, you don't need to be a super athlete, walk around the block. You don't need to be in a crowded place. You don't need to be at risk of catching COVID from others. Get yourself a bit out of breath. If you can't do that, watch one of the TV programs, get yourself in a routine, do some exercise. You might want to do Joe Wicks if you're very fit and perhaps younger, let's put it like that. Mr. Motivator does a great session on BBC for older people and those less, should we say, less athletic. So the point I'm making is that whatever way you access it, that 150 minutes a week of exercise is going to help you. It will help with anxiety, but it'll also increase mood. So don't forget that exercise is actually a recommended treatment by National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. It's a recommended treatment for depression. Now, if you're depressed, you won't feel like exercising and you'll say, no, I can't be bothered. But it's really, really important. And once you get going, the first 5 minutes is always the most difficult. So exercise activity is important. As I said, I think on our very first meeting, having a plan for the day is really, really important. Do that in advance. Now, one important element of that plan is how you're going to reach out to other people, because loneliness is a big problem. And if you're in the depths of feeling lonely in the middle of the day, your motivation levels are going to be quite low. So reaching out to other people is something you got to plan in advance. Now, I'm going to come on to it when I address the sleep issue, but another important thing is getting up at the same time every day. So if you can get up at the same time every day and have a routine that the plan fits into, don't make the plan too ambitious, but have a plan for the next day. That's really important. So, just to recap, having a plan for the next day, an increase in activity, reaching out to other people. I come back to the topic of our exposure to media. Restrict your exposure to media. There is an awful lot of misinformation. And last night, my son showed me some misinformation about vaccines, about COVID on the internet. And I was truly shocked by how much misinformation there is. Now, some of it is just plain balmy. I can't find I'm a mental health professional, but I can't find a better word. It is absolutely crazy. Some of the stuff that 90%, 99% of us wouldn't believe, but some of it is subtle. Some of it is there, I think, designed to upset people. So coming back to media exposure, stick to reliable sources of information. turn the news on once a day,
Mhm.
twice a day if you have to, but limit the amount of exposure, because the more you think about the negative news, the more negative you're going to feel. So that's really important.
Yeah.
And around the house, try and have a ban on talking about COVID. Why not introduce a swear box? So you have a COVID box. So every time somebody talks about COVID, they have to put some money in the box. Now, I am being quite serious here because it is a big problem. Problem I've experienced is a problem my friends experience, and everybody, I think, is infected by this negativity, by all this media exposure, because most of it is negative. We get, what's interesting to me is we get great news bulletins about the vaccine, and then somebody says, but.
Yeah.
So everything is qualified. So reduce your exposure to the media. There's another issue which is really there under the surface. It's reported a bit, but I think it's very important. Alcohol is a big problem. It's a big problem. People with alcohol problems are, seem to be drinking more. The general population is drinking more. Now, don't forget, alcohol is a depressant. It's also, if you're prone to anxiety, it's going to make your anxiety worse. So I think that if you feel edgy the next day after you've had a couple of drinks at night, the only way to deal with that really is not to drink. I think that we've got to be ultra cautious, and it's better to have a dry February. If you feel you can't do without alcohol for the rest of your life, have a dry February. Alcohol is a problem that's insidious. It creeps up on you. And this is a time, we've been in this pandemic for a year, and there will be a lot of people whose alcohol consumption has gone up from a glass of wine 3 times a week to a glass of wine every night. Now, if you're drinking every night, if you don't have a day off, even if you're drinking, a glass of wine every night, that is a problem because you're developing a habit. So alcohol is something you've got to really think about. Now, I know I've been saying a lot about a lot of things, but we're going to put some of these messages up on the website. I've got a list in front of me, so I think we'll have a recap and put some bullet points.
It's just to point out that over on our website, we've got a lot of resources anyway. We've got different things on diet, we've got different things on exercise, etc. What to do if you can't get out to exercise, like you just said. There are exercises you can do in the house. Also, sleep hygiene. Turn off the screens as well is another good one before you go to bed. Don't go to bed with your phone in your hand. It's better to go to bed with a book in your hand, etc. So there's a lot of advice, over on the website that mention all of these things that you've been talking about.
Now, Sarah, you're stealing some of my answer to the next question about sleep. No, excellent. You've half answered it, so that's great. No, they're all very important things, and we'll recap. But I hope after tonight we'll be able to just list some bullet points and just direct anybody who's interested to the right resources, because they are all there. And to the credit of yourself and the rest of the volunteers at No Panic who don't get paid, there are some excellent resources there that have been built up over a long, long time. So if the country hasn't been prepared for the pandemic and an increase in anxiety, No Panic has.
A great point. Yes.
Now, I think just one thing that I want to just reiterate, because it's really important, and I've had a lot of messages from people, including health professionals, to say, I'm so pleased you mentioned vitamin D, because I know that I should be taking a supplement during the winter, but I haven't been. And then people have said, well, what can happen to me if I don't get enough vitamin D? Well, at the extreme end, you can get a disease like rickets, and you can get problems with your bones and more serious problems. But at the milder end, and it's not so mild, it can cause you to feel tired. If a lack of vitamin D can cause you to feel more depressed. There's a whole range of so-called minor symptoms, but collectively is quite important. And vitamin D deficiency is a slippery slope. So, with great respect, I hope that people have listened to my message about vitamin D. So take your supplement, 10 to 25 micrograms. Don't go for the high potency ones unless your doctor or practice nurse recommends it. There's plenty of really very reasonably priced vitamin D on the market. So, and you don't need to go out to the pharmacy, you can get it online.
Absolutely great advice. Once again, Kevin, thank you very much indeed. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to get reminders of when new videos are going up each week.
Now, could I just come back to the issue of sleep?
Absolutely, no problem at all. I didn't cover everything then. If you've still got
you got carried away, Sarah, didn't you? You got carried away. Well, you're forgiven. So
go ahead, go ahead.
No, you actually started very well on that. But I think sleep hygiene is really, really important. So and we've known about sleep hygiene and its effectiveness for a long time. Unfortunately, nobody has quite got to the bottom of why we need to sleep and what exactly in sleep is beneficial. There's lots of theories, and there are some quite good theories around, but the totality of what we know about sleep is not 100%, but we do need to sleep. And if you don't sleep well, of course, that can cause a lot of problems. Now, I'd say the first thing in the sleep hygiene rule that is most important is getting up the same time every day. I think the second thing is that unless it's part of your routine, don't nap during the day. Now, some people naturally have a siesta. If you do have a siesta and it's part of your routine, fine. Power napping is fine. 20 minutes to half an hour. But if it's not in your routine normally, I'd avoid it if possible.
Yeah.
So that's quite important. So only go to bed when you're sleepy. That's another one. So some people try and force themselves to a bedtime. Now, some people, that's okay. But if you've got a sleeping problem and you're forcing yourself to a bedtime and you're thinking, I must get 8 hours in, I must get 8 hours in, that anticipation increases your arousal and stops you going to sleep. Yeah. Now, what you said, absolutely, I'd echo, and it's only in recent years we've begun to realize the importance of this advice. Don't go to bed with screens. Screens, computers, iPads, phones, that screen light is bad for you. It really is. It seems to have a very negative effect on sleep. And if your devices are on and there is blue light, screen light showing overnight, that can also disrupt you. So you might get to sleep and that screen light might be on, but it's going to be harmful to your sleep. Mm-hmm. And actually, you shouldn't be doing your emails just before you're trying to go to sleep, because most days we click on an email we don't like. So that's the last thing you want to do before you go to bed at night. So that's really important. Now, I think the other thing I've learned over the years, when I've asked people who've had sleeping problems about what they do when they wake up, most people will have a whole recipe of things that they do. Now, I'd say that the most important thing that you can do when you get up, when you wake up, is to get up. If you're not back to sleep within 5 minutes, get up, go to another room, sit down, do something neutral, just relax, do a relaxation exercise if you like, perhaps do a crossword. It doesn't matter, something to distract you. And once you start to feel sleepy again, go back to bed. Mm-hmm. But the worst thing you can do is lay there and toss and turn. Mm. Now, on the tossing and turning, there's a related issue, and that's the temperature of the bedroom. So it is, for most people, not everybody, but for most people, it's useful advice to sleep in a cool bedroom, perhaps with a window open, with a bit of air coming in. Yeah. Now, that is all a matter of taste, but probably cool, kind of 18 degrees, 17, 18 degrees with a window open and fresh air, if you can. Not everybody can, but if you can do that, that's fine. So again, back to the No Panic website. There's plenty of information there about dealing with sleep. But just the one final thing is the earlier message about activity. If you haven't got the activity in that you had before a year ago, your sleep is going to suffer. So activity is really important. When you do the activity, now that's a good question. I've often been asked that. Some people do best if they have their activity earlier in the day. Some people find that if they do it later in the evening, it actually makes their arousal system increase, and it's difficult. So you've got to just do that yourself, mix and match your exercise pattern.
Yeah,
So,
we're all very different. We're all individual, and what works for one might not work for somebody else.
exactly, Sarah. So this advice I'm giving, and the advice that's given on the No Panic website, is all general advice. And of course, No Panic has got ways and means of communicating. So we can deal with the individual. So go to our website and find out how that's done.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do have an individual question, don't hesitate to get in touch. All the details will be on the screen for you. So thank you again, Kevin.
Same time next week.
Absolutely, absolutely. You take very good care, and we shall be in touch again soon.
Okay, bye for now, Sarah. Bye.
Bye.